Now, without any further ado, let me introduce our guest, Dr. Kavya Chandral, Assistant Professor, Sharda University, Noida. We welcome you, ma'am, for today's webinar. And now I request Dr. Kavya Chandral to commence the webinar.
Thank you so much, Nyay Shastrat, for inviting me on this portal where I'll be able to present a very interesting dynamism of the international environmental law. Thank you so much. Students, when we discuss about the international environmental law, there are the various conventions which holds a very great importance when it comes to international environmental law. So, international environmental law is one such law that deals with various international conventions, it deals with various protocols which has been signed and which has been propagated by various nations in order to fulfill the requirements of the international law. It is very important that all certain aspects, be it like agreements, be it like protocols, or be it like any other thing which falls in the category of international environmental law, they must actually fall within its purview. Now, when we talk about International Environmental Convention, that's a very first topic which we be discussing about. International Environmental Convention is one such convention that is a convention which legally binds the agreement which has been negotiated among the governments to take action to curb down any kind of environmental threat. So it is combating in relation to the global environmental threat. It is combating to bring a change. It is combating to share certain aspects in relation to environment. So it has now been reaching as an agreement to take an action among the sovereign nations within diverse interests, and it's no such a small feat. So, however, in certain decades, there have been proliferated. We have been proliferated to address certain problems which people have been facing at the regional level, at the global level, and various other levels also, where the environmental concerns are considered as one of the major concern for bringing out the change. So when we talk about like these things, this aspect is in relation to environment. And when we talk about the environment, I would request everyone to please let me know what according to you is environment. I would request everyone to let me know that what according to you is environment. Please put up in the chat box. I would request whosoever is interested, they can meanwhile interact in the chat box. For you, what according to you is environment? I want you to please write down your answer in the chat box. So we'll discuss one by one. What according to you is environment? Okay, Shivanshi Verma has raised her hand. Yes, Shivanshi, you can put up your answer in the chat box. What according to you is environment? Our living space. Okay, Alex. Kevin Joy answers biodiversity. Okay. Anything else? Shivani, you can put up your answer in the chat box. If you have any doubts, we will discuss it later. Environment includes biotic and abiotic factors. Okay, Shivani. Anything else? What according to you is environment? Okay. See, when we talk about environment, the definition itself has been defined under the Environmental Protection Act 1986, that it includes various components, flora, fauna, microorganisms, and various other things. But when we talk about environment, everybody has different aspects, everybody has its different story of understanding and interpreting the term environment. They have various connotations of interpretation that what is environment actually is. But as a at Super answered that natural world or geographical surroundings conditions with a person living space. I would request Makhan Sakya ji to kindly mute yourself. Okay. Piyush Vishwakarma has answered surroundings in which living and non-living coexist. Okay. See, when we are talking about environment, everybody can have their own way of understanding the term environment. But when we're talking about the international conventions, the basic purpose, the basic understanding that why these international conventions have been signed is to combat and bring about a certain change in the environment, is to bring a certain change in the surroundings, and to develop the understanding among the people, also to sympathize or to also to sensitize the people that they must be aware about the living conditions, about the surroundings, about the people, and also to bring a certain change in their in their understanding, in their surroundings, and also how they are living. Now, moving ahead to the next slide, why there's a need for certain conventions. I mean, when we are talking about the conventions, then why there is a need for convention? See, ratification and implementation are one such important measures to keep the agreements intact, to keep the conversation intact among the nations, that they will be binding whatever has been decided, they will be binding certain norms, they will be binding certain laws which has been decided among the people, right? So that is why these nations have been working upon the implementation and the ratification of the conventions. Also, health and environmental aspects are really important. So nowadays we have seen that the health has been declining. People have been facing so many health related issues incessantly, consistently. So environmental concerns are to be addressed in order to bring the change in the measures, in the aspects in relation to health. So it also creates economic benefits such as harmonized legislation and standards across borders, which will introduce a level playing field of industry across the countries. So parties from competing, which are competing with each other as an expense of environment and health, factors such as human health, food security, economic development actually contribute to climate change. That is why we need such conventions which can actually bring the change to the world. That is why we need the conventions which can actually bring the change among the people. These conventions provides a platform to discuss these international conventions, and it actually takes the action to prevent the negative impact. For example, I'll give you an instance. See, if there are no laws, if our laws are not codified, will you be following the laws which is in relation to environment? If you have not been if penalties are not there of throwing the garbage on the road, if penalties are not there of throwing the garbage or throwing the trash on the road, will you be doing it? Obviously no, because somewhere or other you will not be sensitized, you will not be threatened, or you can say that there will no such fear among yourself that will, when you once throw a garbage or a trash on the road, you will be charged for the same. So similarly, these conventions are there in order to bring a change, and that change is in relation to the environment, that change is in relation to surroundings. Because as a world, as a developing world, we see ourselves, uh, we are growing at a very high space. We want to bring a certain change, but there has to be a balance between a developing nation and the developed nation. Developing nation and the developed nation, there must be a balance of the developing nation and also balance of the environment. So development and environment must be at, there must be a striking balance, they must go hand in hand, but there must be a balance which is to be brought. Now, moving ahead to the next slide of understanding the various conventions of the international environmental law. The very first convention is the Stockholm Convention. Stockholm Convention is one such convention that has been that is basically signed to protect the human health and environment from the persistent organic pollutants. So these are the kinds of pollutants which are harming the environment, which are creating an imbalance in the environment. Now, this international convention has been opened for signature in the year 2001 in Stockholm. Now, when we're talking about this international convention, there are certain objectives of the Stockholm Convention. Now, the very first objective of the Stockholm Convention, that is to support the transition to safer alternatives. We need to target the additional POPs, that is persistent organic pollutants. We need to work together to make this world a better place so that we can be saved from any kind of POPs, and there must be a free future in relation to POPs. So you can understand that how POPs are impacting the environment when in relation to health, when in relation to resources, when in relation to the surroundings. So whatever we are discussing right now, it is everything in relation to protect the surroundings. It is in relation to protect the nature, natural resources, and flora and fauna. Okay, moving ahead to next slide and understanding Stockholm better. So, India has ratified the Stockholm Convention in the year 2006. So, as per Article 25.4, Clause 4 of the Stockholm Convention, which was enabled to protect, to keep it itself a default as an opt out position, such as the amendments, there were annexures, and these conventions cannot be enforced unless there is a ratification. So, even if the countries have signed the convention, it is very, very important that the particular country must actually ratify it. So then it shall be, it shall be considered as binding in nature. Unless and until it is not, ratified, that such particular convention cannot be considered as binding in nature. So, when we are talking about Stockholm Convention has called out to ban 9 of the dirty dozen chemicals. It has made sure that 8 pesticides must need to be ensured that there must not be, it has to be used in certain categories which they have defined. Stockholm Convention also made sure that POPs, that is persistent organic pollutants, must not be there. There must be a free future in relation to POPs. Now, POPs are hampering the environment, are hampering the surroundings. It is creating a very negative impact to the health. It is creating a harm to the nature and natural resources. Now, moving ahead and understanding the very next convention, that is CBD. CBD is also called as Convention on Biological Diversity. I am very, very sure that whosoever has read environmental law, they must have heard this term before. So, a Convention on Biological Diversity, it's a legally binding treaty to conserve biodiversity. Now, that has been in force since 1993, and it has worked, and it has been serving a very three important and crucial objectives, which is in relation to environment, that there must be sustainable use of the components of biological diversity. Whatever components are there, whatever the nature and natural resources are there, they must have to be sustainable and adequate use of it. The second important, very crucial aspect is that it has been ratified by 196 nations. Okay. Also, this Convention on Biological Diversity focuses upon conservation of biological diversity. My question for you at this moment is that what do you understand by biological diversity? Somebody who can put up in the chat box, at least I want some people who can really connect with it. What do you understand by the term biological diversity? Or did you, if you have heard the term like previously also, that what according to you is biological diversity? What, according to you, is biological diversity? Okay, plant kingdom. Okay, Sanjeev Chauhan has answered plant kingdom. Shruti Raj has answered environment and main ecosystem. Okay. Usha Pandey, variability and life on Earth, ecosystem. Okay. Shivanshi Verma, variety of all living things and interaction. Okay. Shivani answered various life forms of Earth. Kumar Akash has answered plants and animal life organisms. Okay. Students, when we talk about conservation of biological diversity or the term biological diversity, it includes the living ecosystem, it includes nature, natural resources, it includes flora, fauna, and everything which is there on the planet Earth and which is living in nature. Also, it includes the variety of species, it includes the varieties of flora, it includes the varieties of fauna. So, when we're talking about the conservation or conservation of biological diversity, which is in relation, the main important objective of this convention is to conserve the biological diversity and also to ensure that there must be equitable sharing of the benefits which is in relation to genetic resources. So when we are talking about the genetic resources or when we are utilizing the resources which is in relation to biodiversity, we always have to ensure that there must be equitable sharing of the resources. The resources must be fairly and equitably distributed among the people, it must be equitably shared among the people, so that there must not be any kind of scarcity which is to be left. Now this particular convention has been ratified by 196 nations, and India has enacted this biological diversity um, act in the year 2002. So 2002 is the year when India has enacted this act, which is working in relation to the particular convention of CBD. So India has its act also, Convention Biological Diversity Act 2002, which is based upon the CBD Convention of 1993. Moving ahead and understanding the better understanding of CBD. So CBD, the CBD Secretariat is based in Montreal, which is in Canada, and it operates under the United Nations Environment Program. So CBD has been working under the United Nations Environment Program, and it has been based in Montreal. Now, this has come into force in on 11th September 2003, and this has been a protocol which seeks to protect the biological diversity from the potential risk which has been posed by the living modified organisms. So please do understand that this particular convention has been there in order to protect the biological diversity from the potential risk which is in relation to living modified organisms. Also, it has been resulting from the modern biotechnology. Now, this international convention, as I already told you, it has three very, very important points, which is in relation to conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of its components, and fair and equitable sharing of the benefits. So, these are one of the most important and crucial aspects of conservation of biological diversity of this particular convention. Now, moving ahead for the better understanding. Now, the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arises from the utilization of genetic resources. Now, along with that, we have Nagoya Protocol also, which we'll be discussing in the next slide. Now, CBD also covers various aspects of traditional knowledge, also, which is in relation to genetic resources. So, if you have heard the term genetic resources, CBD is also trying to ensure that the genetic resources needs to be protected, needs to be conserved, needs to be, in order to, there must not be hampering of these resources. We need to ensure that all these resources are to be properly utilized, and convention on biological diversity is taking the accord of the same. Moving ahead to understanding the better understanding. So next is Basel Convention. So Basel Convention has been adopted in the year 1989 by the Conference of Plenituparise in Basel, Switzerland. So this Plenituparise in Basel, Switzerland, this particular conference is based upon the transboundary movement of hazardous waste. Now, any kind of hazardous waste which has been, channeling, which has been going, which has been shifting from one place to the another place, now this convention is dealing with the same. Any kind of waste disposal which is happening from one country to the another country, the transboundary movement of hazardous waste, that it's a Basel Convention which is also dealing with the same. Now this particular Basel Convention is an international treaty which came into force in 1992, and it is an international treaty that aims to reduce the movement of hazardous waste between the countries. So it is particularly focusing on preventing the transfer of hazardous waste from developed nations to less developed countries, because developed nations have the habit of giving the various kinds of waste to the developed countries. So developed to least developed countries must have to find out the balance, and there must be a proper vigilation, there must be a proper check when it comes to dumping of any kind of waste. So there must be transfer of hazardous waste from developed nations to developing countries, and this is how we get to know about it. Now it provides a cooperation between the parties, which includes exchange of information on issues relevant to the implementation of the convention. Now this is how we are working upon it. Now it particularly focus on preventing the transfer of hazardous waste from developed nations to least developed countries. Now what developed nations are doing it, they are sending the hazardous waste to least developed nations. Now this check has to be there. This is very very important, that the developed nations must not send or transfer the hazardous waste to least developed nations. Now this is really bad to understand that developed nations have been doing it. Now when we understand about it, there's a it's very very crucial to understand that people nowadays have been taking environment like not seriously, but they are just discarding, they are just diminishing the value or utility of the environment. So my question for you at this moment is that why do you think that people nowadays are not taking seriously the environmental concerns? I want everybody to answer that in the chat box. I want to know that why people nowadays are not taking environment seriously. What do you think that why, what is the reason behind to it? Okay, environment and marine ecosystem protection and conservation. Okay, Shruti. What is the reason to behind to it that why people are not taking environment so seriously? Okay, Supramita, they laziness. Okay, Alex. Uh, Supratim Day has answered no strong implementation of statutes related to environmental protection in India. Okay. I just hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Alpati has answered no strict enforcement of laws. Sivani has answered lack of strict implementation of laws. Dev Pratim Ray has answered more profit in business and industrial development only. Okay. Um, Shruti Raj has answered no proper convention, including these provisions and technologies, is also weak. Um, Priti Pandey has also answered nowadays people are selfish, they always think about themselves, not the whole country. Okay. Rohit Sawant has answered the implementation of laws is less stringent. Meghana has answered punishments are not very stringent. Nitin Kumar Singh has answered फर्स्ट ह्यूमन पास एनवायरमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की कम लोग स्ट्रॉन्ग करनी होगी एनवायरमेंटल लॉ को स्ट्रिक्ट होना पड़ेगा डेंजरस होते जा रहे हैं जब तक सिचुएशन एंड नहीं होती सीरियस नहीं होगा वी नीड स्ट्रिक्ट लॉ ओके नितिन कुमार Akash has answered because of lack of responsibility and lack of laws in India. Shivani Verma, lack of awareness about environmental issues. Usha Pandey, lack of strong punishment. People don't know the seriousness of impacts. Sibi. Moving ahead to the next convention, that is Basel Convention, which we have already discussed, that it provides a cooperation between the parties, including the exchange of information. So, what is happening is that international treaty this international treaty has aimed to reduce the movement of the hazardous waste from one nation to the another nation, that the movement of hazardous waste has been reduced in order to ensure that there must be a balance of the development and the environment. So the movement of hazardous waste has to be reduced. It has particularly focused on preventing the transfer of hazardous waste from developed nations to less developed countries. Now it has focused that what developed nations are doing it, they have been just dumping the e-waste without taking into without taking the account of it, that what amount they have been dumping into what amount and what, there's no such quantity to it, that how much they have been dumping to the least developed nations. This has been really very pity to understand their concerns. We have been feeling very vulnerable on the part of least developed nations, that they have been facing a very tragic situation from the developed nations, that how they have been dumping so far the any kind of waste, be it electronic waste or be it the transboundary movement of hazardous waste. Now, understanding the next convention, that is Minamata Convention. Now, what is Minamata Convention? Now, this convention, it was agreed in the fifth session of Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee in Geneva, Switzerland. Now, it has tried controlling the anthropogenic release of mercury through its life cycle. Uh, you can understand that how mercury is affecting and creating a contamination which is in relation to health issues. Now, the convention also addresses the interim storage of mercury. Now, this Minamata Convention on Mercury, it's a global treaty to protect the health and environment from the adverse effects of mercury and its compounds. Now, recently, Indonesia has introduced a convention on mercury to tackle illegal trade of mercury. So, illegal trade of mercury has been introduced by Indonesia to tackle its problems, to tackle its issues, which is in relation to the Minamata Convention. It was agreed in the fifth session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee in Geneva 2013. So, this convention has been already agreed, and this convention, the major goal of this convention is to make sure that the it must control the anthropogenic release of mercury throughout the life cycle and under this convention. Now, Minamata Convention also addresses various important measures. It becomes waste sites contaminated by mercury and it creates the health issues. India has ratified this convention. Please do understand that India has ratified this convention, so it becomes India automatically becomes binding to go by the laws which is there in the convention. Now, disposal of mercury waste is to be taken into account, emissions of mercury from industry facilities. Now, manufacturing and trade of mercury products which are containing the mercury. Now, this convention covers all the aspects of mercury controlling and reducing the mercury across a range of the products, processes, and industries. These includes control on mercury mining. The manufacture has been related in relation to disposal of waste, disposal of mercury waste, and various other things. So, country has ratified the convention and are bound by the international law that will take place. Firstly, country has ratified the convention and it is going to be bound by the law. Next is Rotterdam Convention. Did anyone just give me a thumbs up if you have ever heard about the Rotterdam Convention? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, so Vendas. Anybody else? If you have ever heard the about the Rotterdam Convention. Okay, Mag. Okay, Megnam. Okay, Vani Singh. Okay, Mrinalika. Yes. Supratim De has already raised his hand. See, when we're talking about the Rotterdam Convention, the Rotterdam Convention was adopted in the year 1998 by a conference of Planetopare Rotterdam in Netherlands. So this convention entered into the force in 2004. Now, this convention has basically made sure. Okay, is it visible now, Supratim? Supratim, is it visible?
271, 273.
I just hope it's visible now. Okay, thank you, Supratim. So now this convention has covers all the pesticides and industrial chemicals that have been banned or severely restricted due to health concerns, due to health reasons. So Rotterdam Convention has banned various pesticides which are creating a fuss to the environment. Now this convention creates a legally binding obligation for the implementation of prior informed consent procedure. This convention has came into the force in the year 2004. Uh, this convention was one such convention which has certain objectives. Now, the very first objective of this convention is that we need to promote the responsibility and there must be a cooperative effort required among the parties in relation to international trade so that we can reduce the hazardous chemicals in order to protect the health, in order to protect the environment, in order to there must not be any kind of potential harm. This convention has also made sure that there must be a contribution to environmentally sound use of the hazardous chemicals. Also, we need to facilitate information exchange among the among various decision making processes. This is one such convention that has worked upon the implementation. This is one such convention that has worked upon facilitating and contribution in relation to the pesticides. So, there must be a cooperative effort required in order to curb down the hazardous chemicals, which was taken up by this convention in order to protect the health and environment. Now, understanding about the Vienna Convention and Montreal Protocol. This is the another very important and crucial international conventions. So, Vienna Convention came in the year 1985, which was in relation to the ozone layer depletion, and it has tried protecting the depletion of the ozone layer, and it was an international agreement which was initiated by the United Nations members, recognize that there must be a fundamental importance of preventing the damage of stratospheric ozone layer. Now, Vienna Convention has focused upon the depletion of ozone layer. So, Montreal Protocol has focused upon the HFCs, fluorocarbons. So, this convention has been one such convention where it has not been only focusing upon the depletion of the ozone layer, but it has been also working upon the depletion and the various activities which has been relation to anthropogenic activities or HFCs. So HFCs, hydrofluorocarbons, or any kind of depletion in ozone layer has been addressed by these important international conventions. So this particular convention has been adopted in the year 2016, which is by the Kigali Amendment to Montreal Protocol, which is in relation to production and the consumption of the HFCs. So when we are talking about these important international conventions, like we just now discussed about the convention of Vienna Convention, Montreal Protocol, or any kind of other convention, or any kind of other convention. So this convention, be it Vienna Convention, be it Montreal Protocol, be it like Kigali, or be it like CBD. Now every such convention is talking about the environment, but still in India we are lacking the stringent or punitive measures which can work upon the environmental or environment is one such issue which people are facing. It's at various levels, be it regional level, be it local level, or be it like at global level. So like international conventions, we have already read and understood about the overview of international environmental law, but one such thing which like nowadays people are not focusing upon is like empathy or sensitivity or sensitivization towards the environment. There must be an onus, there must be a responsibility of oneself towards the environment which one is responsible for. So, if one is responsible for bringing the change in the environment, one needs to ensure that we need to start it by or at our home itself. We need to make sure that if there is any kind of waste which is there, we need to dump that and we need to address this issue. Like, for example, such as an e waste. If there is an e-waste, are we dumping and discarding down the e-waste at a proper level or at a proper place? No, we just use the mobile phone, we just throw it off, or we just discard or dispose of in a normal dustbin. But we need to make sure that there are e-steward recyclers which can address this issue at their level. We need to contact to them to bring down a certain change at our levels, be it at local level, be it at regional level, or be it at global level. That's all from my end. We have discussed about various international conventions, how India is related, how India is impacted towards by these international conventions. I'm open for the questions. If you have any doubts, you may ask. Over to Nyaya Shastra.
Anyone with any queries can question, ma'am.
Rishita has a question. Rishita has raised her hand.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, Rishita, you are answering.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
Rishita.
good evening, ma'am.
You're audible.
Ma'am, you mentioned the importance about individual awareness and individual responsibility, that it should start at home. But I mean, apart from the fundamental duties which are there in the Constitution, are there any other legal guidelines or anything that enforces such kind of a duty, or a mentality in the citizens of the country or in India? Because as you have also mentioned, and many of the fellow participants mentioned, that people are not so aware about the environment. So if the awareness itself is not there, then how can we inculcate the habit of preservation of the environment? Can you provide any insights on that?
Yes, Rishita, your question is very, very legitimate and it's a very uh, on prompt question. See, when we are talking about environment, see, it must be as an individual, you must be empathetic enough to understand the pros and cons of each alternative. Because as we are living in a world which has certain impact or which has certain consequences to whatever you do so far, so, as far as laws are concerned, we do have laws, but obviously it is not binding towards anybody that you are supposed to maintain cleanliness or hygiene. So, as an individual, as the citizen of the country, you must be empathetic enough to understand your reaction towards any kind of the norms which will take place. So if you are reacting towards something, you must understand there must be a repercussion for the same. Right. So when we are talking about the constitutional norms, yes, we do have that in the constitution itself. But apart from that, we have certain other acts, such as we have the Water Act, we have the Air Prevention and Control Act, we have the acts such as Environmental Protection Act. So this the major that why they have been drafted. Now these acts have been drafted in order to protect and conserve the nature and natural resources. Now, it is our responsibility, it is our onus as a citizen of the country that we need to protect the same. It doesn't have to be on the gunpoint, right? Ishita, over to you. Rishita,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
is your question answered?
Hello.
Yes, is your question answered?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Pranav.
Ma'am, when you talk a lot about international convention, and we see in international arena there is a lack of enforcement to the same. But my
Mm-hmm.
question is not to that. We see that a division has been made. For example, the recent COP summit, global south versus global north.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you see that? My question is not legal or something. Do you see realistically that we are on a verge of finding something that will have a realistic impact on the all these conventions, all these laws
Mm-hmm.
or international convents? Is there a realist chance? Because in my opinion, when I see a very dimming light with
Mm-hmm.
the ray of hope being so low. So,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not an expert on the subject, so since what I'm saying, do you see a chance?
Okay. Pranav, absolutely yes. If you see a dimming light, do see that exact dimming light. I do see a ray of hope. I do see a ray of light. I do see some sort of reflection to what has happened in the past 20 to 30 years since Stockholm Convention was one such turning point where Indira Gandhi ji, she herself went to understand. She herself has taken so much contribution in understanding and implementing the Stockholm Convention when it comes to India. So Stockholm Convention was initially a very first turning point uh, where where our Indian leaders have given the taken as a very prime and major importance to one such international convention. But nowadays, in the past 30 years, we have seen you can say it has been a very on and off road. Okay, so there has been ups, there has been downs in relation to environment, but what we are lacking currently is a consistency, empathy, like I just mentioned, and an awareness. So awareness nowadays, if you see and talk about the electronic waste, earlier like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people were not at all aware about dumping of electronic waste and discarding of electronic waste to e-steward recyclers. We do not have the concept of the corporate environmental responsibility that every corporate has to contribute some amount of fund to the environment. You know, small small efforts, small minuscule efforts are actually bringing the change and impacting the world at a global level, or at a regional level, or at a local level. So we need people for the same. We need a people who can, understand the environment, but also be equivalently empathetic towards it, because whatever they are doing it, they must understand the consequences to it. If you throw the trash on the road, you must know that the future generations, there must the future generations are going to be impacted, and they cannot be a sustainable development without it, because sustainable development talks about the SDGs, and one such SDG is talking about the health, environment, and global concerns. I just hope your question is answered, Pranav.
Yes, ma'am. But as I said that, for example, we see the America election and everything. As a person who is connected with law, it gives me a giving life. But I hope that whatever points you have made get a practical result out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We are also hoping the same, Pranav. As a citizen of the country, we are also hoping the same. As a citizen, we are also making sure that from our end, we need to be responsible enough for the actions which we are putting up, for the norms which are there in the country, for the laws which we are there for which they are in the country. We need to make sure that it has to be enforced properly. Nitin Kumar Singh is posting that we need to reduce the meat consumption. One of the biggest reason, I believe, recently scientific survey says same things. Okay, Nitin, I absolutely agree with your concern. Yes, Pankaj Singh wants to contribute something. Yes, Usha Pandey, you have raised your hand.
Good evening, ma'am.
Very good evening, Usha.
I am Usha Pandey from Institute of Legal Studies, and ma'am, my question is that while we were answering you, we just uh, answered you that there are lack of punishments. Ma'am,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think? How can we modify the laws so that people get more take all this environment related issues seriously and start taking steps for the improvement?
Okay, Usha, a very beautiful question you have asked. It's such a lovely question. I'm so glad to answer this question. The very, very first important thing that the people must make sure whatever the norms, policies, and guidelines which are prepared these days, they are making sure that there must be awareness, environmental awareness programs are to be there. There are so many non-governmental organizations which are working effortlessly in order to contribute and protect the environment at large. Secondly, we need the campaigners. Okay, we need environmental awareness campaigners which can actually uh, campaign, create awareness about the environment, be it at local level, be it at grassroots level, be it at regional level, or be it at global level. So we need environmental ambassadors, though it's still there, but what we are lacking is empathy. Secondly, as our laws are not stringent, our laws are not punitive, our laws are not very much punishable. So we need such stringent, robust laws which can actually bring the change. If we will start punishing somebody for throwing the trash on the road, now from the very next day onwards, people will start taking it seriously. So, as we are lacking the seriosity, as we are lacking the seriousness in relation to environmental concerns, in relation to the world at large, in relation to flora and fauna, as you see that nowadays we have come across so many violent related issues in relation to animals. So animals have been violently beaten down. So we have the animal protection laws as well, but what we are lacking is that firstly the first step should not be taken. The violence should not be there, and this violence will not be there when there will be a stringent, punitive, robust sanction which can be enforced from the country itself. Yes, is your question answered?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Any other question? Yes, Rishita and Sivani, your hands are raised. Any further questions?
Ma'am, good
Yes.
afternoon.
Very good afternoon, Sivani.
Yes, ma'am. My question is related to the air pollution in Delhi.
Yes.
According to the air quality index, Delhi is performing very poor. So, how the pollution of the environment violates our basic right to health? So, what are the legal measures to mitigate these problems?
Okay. Sivani, first of all, right to environment, right to live in a wholesome environment. We have seen that in MC Mehta versus Union of India, where Supreme Court has already stated about the protection and conservation of the environment, and right to live in a wholesome environment is our very, very intrinsic right, is very, very crucial right that has been already given under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Now, how is it impacting the health? How is it impacting the environment? At the very first level, we are facing the environment. We are not only facing the threat to it, but secondly, we are also making sure that our future generations will not be able to survive well. So that's not only a threat to us, because the way we are going, the way we are planning towards living in a very sustainable environment, we are somewhere or the other declining the position. We are somewhere or the other declining. We are somewhere or the other diminishing this whole identity of the world, because the way we are going, the air quality index or AQI is increasing day by day, and Delhi has been one of the most polluted cities of the country. Not only, it's just that it is not only impacting the people at large, but it is also going to impact the future generations. If now we'll not take any step forward, if we'll now not take any movement towards it, we will be surely and certainly not able to survive, because there are so many diseases which people are developing because of the environment. Be it the people who are facing asthma, the people who are facing the lung related issues, uh, the old age people, the elderly people, everybody is trapped down in this environment. What we are lacking is, we are lacking the empathy, and this is one such time which is a very detrimental time for the all the for the people of this nation, that we face smog. Not only the smog is impacting the internal health, but it is also creating the mental disbalance. Also, mental imbalance is also equivalently being created, because here we are panicked about the sensitivity related issues. Somehow we are already panicked and understand about the environment as well. So equivalently, the mental health is at stake, the physical health is at stake. It is creating an imbalance towards one's well-being. So that's a major concern when it comes to the understanding of the environment. Yes, Sivani, I just hope your question is answered.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay,
Ma'am, there is a
Sakshi.
question in chat
Yes,
box.
yes, yes. I have seen Sakshi Kushwaha. She mentions what role PIL plays in protecting the environment. See, public interest litigation are basically filed by the people. So we have Mahesh Chandra Mehta ji. He is a leading environmentalist who has filed several public interest litigation in order to bring about the change in the lives of the people. So whenever people of the country are facing any problem which is to be addressed by people at large, when people at large, whenever there is a problem, whenever there is an issue, environmental related issue, which more or less many people are facing, then that is where public interest litigation is filed in order to bring a change in the environmental related concerns. Okay, Sakshi, I just hope your question is answered. Yes, over to you, Nayesh Shastrat.
Thank you so much, ma'am.